So, all right, as it stands right now in CCP, we have 400 points assigned and hopefully turned in by today. The air test flashcards, which are going to come in such handy now that the air test doesn't exist. That was 100 points. You had your Great Depression assignment, also 100 points. World War II, also 100 points, and 1950s and 60s, which is due theoretically tomorrow. Okay, so tomorrow, 1950s and 60s assignment. If you have questions on that assignment, please hang back when we get done here so I can answer your questions. I am also going to have special office hours this evening from 8 to 11. So if this doesn't clear up any questions, or if you have further questions, please log in this evening. I'll put the link across my classes. I'm trying to do it later in the day because I know it's a shock. Some of my teenagers don't get out of bed. And it's amazing how having office hours from 8 to 11 in the morning just isn't good enough. So we're going to try 8 to 11 p.m. tonight to see if I can get a little bit better traffic. Needless to say, I did want to go over how we're going to handle the last 300 points. Now that they have officially canceled for the rest of the year, I'm pretty sure you don't want to go through modern American history with me doing a bunch of PowerPoints and assigning specific projects over Ronald Reagan or Bill Clinton or whatever else. So we're going to move forward with project options. Now, I posted onto Google Classroom the project options. It's my responsibility now to explain it, give you a kind of heads up on what to expect. So I am going to present my screen here so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about and follow along. Obviously, you still have control over your computer screen. You can look on whatever you need to, but I'm going to go through this and try and explain this as best as I can over the next, hopefully only about a half an hour or so, because I don't want to take up too much of your time. All right, so on Google Classroom, I'm going to bring Google Classroom up here. You will notice on the stream, just above the link that you used to get into this, and again, my apologies that I was a couple of minutes late. Our internet has been spotty, to say the least, today. And for those of you with younger brothers and sisters, my heart goes out to you because my daughters have been extra special today. Needless to say, you will notice that I posted final project options and a material above that, educated by Tara Westover. Now, the final project options is what I'm going to focus on here. You will notice that I gave you 7 different options with which to accrue your last 300 points. The Sinclair folks are really coming after us to, give a final exam and do all this other stuff. So again, we're going to go on the previously held belief structure that if Sinclair reaches out to you and says, how was the final? You're going to say really hard. One of the hardest I've ever taken, even for a take home. Instead, what we're in reality going to do is one of these final project options. I'm giving you 7 project options. These are going to be due periodically through. You're going to have basically it in pieces and parts, and I'll explain here in a second, but you're going to get a choice of one of these 7 options. The first option is film studies. What I did is I put together this list right here, the actors and actresses list, and when you bring that up, it gives you famous actors and actresses of the 1900s, okay, all the way up to today. So you have people like Audrey Hepburn, Cary Grant, and Jimmy Stewart, who your generation may not know, but I would assume many of you know Tom Hanks and Robin Williams. So there are some more contemporary names, if you will, but these are a lot of different folks that have won Oscars and been in some of the more classic films out there. What I'm going to ask you to do in this project option, if you're a film person, if you're into watching movies, what I'm going to ask you to do in this assignment is you are going to choose an actor for each week that you're going to have a group kind of film critic circle. All right, so you're going to form your own group. You're going to form a group of 3 to maybe 5 or 6 fellow classmates. So if you can find other people that are interested in watching some classic films as your project, if you will, what you're going to do is you're going to say, all right, for example, let's say I get together and I say, all right, Roth, Rohrig, and Smits are my group. Roth, Rohrig, Smits, and I will communicate to each other what is the best time for us to have a meeting. Okay. And you should have a meeting of about 45 minutes on Google Meet like this. Okay. And you need to schedule it. So you need to schedule somewhere around May 4th, somewhere around May 11th, and somewhere around May 18th, because those are the 3 dates to which you're going to have to report back that you've done these assignments. Okay. What you need to do is basically for each week, you need to watch 2 films of your chosen actor. Okay. So you're going to, let's say in week 1, I say I want to watch Jimmy Stewart movies. Now you're on your honor at this point. I would like you to watch films that you haven't watched before. Okay. And I would like you to choose actors that maybe you're not sure who they are. And you're going to do a little research about them, but you're also going to watch 2 of their movies that week. So your chosen actor, for example, let's say I chose Jimmy Stewart. Smith says I want to watch Cary Grant movies. Rohrig says I want to watch Audrey Hepburn movies, and Roth says, man, I'm a big fan of Robin Williams, but I haven't seen some of the movies that are under his name. That week, we all watch 2 films from that actor. Then when we have our Google Meet, we discuss what we watched, what we learned about the time period from the film, and how it relates to something in class. Whether it be family life, whether it be the political backdrop, whether it be the economics of the time period, whatever. It could also be, hey, this didn't relate to much, but it was a goofy movie. Okay. And you can talk about, their performances. Do you think that Jimmy Stewart was a good, I would come in and say, hey, I watched Harvey and It's a Wonderful Life. And in both films, Jimmy Stewart kind of played the same type of character, and he showed kind of the economics of the time, and you go through and kind of explain why the film helps you to understand 1900s America. Okay, it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be long and drawn out, but I want you to talk about the film. I want you to talk about the actor in question. So you have to know who Audrey Hepburn is. So Rohrig would say, I watched How to Steal a Million, and this is what the character was all about, and this is how Audrey Hepburn played it. And I thought she was good or bad in that role. I think she's a good or bad actress, depending upon how she was in the film. You're going to be a critic. Okay, so your criticism of the movie should take about 3 or 4 minutes each within your group dynamic, and we can choose to do a round robin where you talk about one, and then Smith talks about hers, and then I talk about mine, and then we do it all again when we get through. Or you can just say, all right, I'm going to talk about my Jimmy Stewart movies straight up, take about 5 to 8 minutes to talk about them. It can't be, well, I watched it, it was okay. It's got to be a little bit more than that, okay? Because at some point I am going to ask to be invited to your Google chat, your Google Meet, and see how you're kind of processing. Now, the way that you're going to show that you had this and that you earned your 100 points is you're going to take notes while somebody else is talking. So while I'm talking about Jimmy Stewart movies that I watched, you're going to type into a Google Doc, Mr. V watched Jimmy Stewart movies. He watched these 2, and here's what he said. You're going to kind of, and it doesn't need to be word for word. It just needs to be short, little, sweet synopsis of what I said about those films. And you can even do goofy things like Mr. V gives 2 enthusiastic thumbs up, whatever the case may be. So you're going to do that for the first week. The second week, you're going to choose a new actor. Okay. So I chose Jimmy Stewart. Now, maybe I watched 2 films and raved about Jimmy Stewart to the point where Devin Roth says, man, I want to watch Jimmy Stewart movies. And he may watch different ones than the ones that I chose. Okay. Or you can just scroll through and say, man, my mom really has said that she liked Meryl Streep movies. Or, I really have always kind of wondered the influence of Denzel Washington with Sidney Poitier. Maybe I want to watch some of his movies. Okay. So you're going to choose another actor and watch 2 other films. So in the end, after 3 weeks, simple math says you will have watched 6 of these films. Now, some of these films are on Prime, some of them are on Netflix, some of them are out on YouTube, and some of you have very secret stashes of films that you find treasure troves on the internet, whether you're using Pirate Bay or whatever your little services are to rip off copyrighted movies. I don't want to hear about it, but they're out there. These are films that won Academy Awards. These are classic films. You may not be able to find all of them. You may have to rent them through Apple or through through Amazon, whatever the case may be. You're going to watch these films. Now, if you're not into films all that much, you're not into watching movies, this may not be for you. Okay. And look, there are some hits and misses on this list too for me. Okay. I am a big fan of Audrey Hepburn. I think How to Steal a Million is fantastic, but I like Peter O'Toole, who is the male lead in that. It's a goofy film about how they're ripping off an art museum to steal a statue. Okay. It's really stupid, but it is kind of interesting. It's very well acted. Breakfast at Tiffany's is kind of considered her classic. My Fair Lady is a musical version of a British play called Pygmalion, where somebody makes a bet that they can make a street, gutter wench, as she's known, into a lady, and Audrey Hepburn, of course, plays the lady. But I really didn't like Roman Holiday, and I'm not a huge fan of Charade because they're, quote unquote chick flicks. My mother loves them. Okay. This is her favorite actress. Cary Grant was the leading man, along with Jimmy Stewart, for that matter, the two leading men of the 1940s and 50s. Their movies are considered classics. So if you're looking for kind of what the 1950s leading man was, that's your example of that. Hopefully you know who Tom Hanks is, with Apollo 13, Philadelphia. Out of all these movies right here, I still think his best acting gig was Philadelphia. He plays a gay lawyer who has AIDS, and this is at the very early stages of the AIDS epidemic. And for that matter, it was one of the first films that really went after gay rights and talking about the issues that gay people faced in the 1990s. Denzel Washington should have won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in that. It was a crime that he didn't. Robin Williams movies, Good Morning Vietnam, is about Vietnam. It's a funny movie, but it's also serious at the same time. Awakenings was the first time Robin Williams ever was a serious actor instead of kind of the goofy person he normally was. He was nominated for Academy Award. Good Will Hunting, he won an Academy Award for being someone that helps Matt Damon's character. Dead Poets Society, some of you have watched that in English class. Others of you haven't. It's a fantastic film as well. And The Birdcage, also one of the first movies to bring up LGBTQ rights in the 1990s. And this one was a much more goofy portrayal of it, but the actors in this film took it pretty serious. Katharine Hepburn was very similar to Audrey Hepburn. They're no relation, but Katharine Hepburn was considered to be one of the best leading ladies of the 1950s and 60s. Probably her best performance was in The Lion in Winter, which is about Henry II's role. Peter O'Toole plays Henry II. She plays Eleanor of Aquitaine, and she's kind of evil in it. Not kind of, she really is. But she's also very good in The African Queen, Bringing a Baby, Philadelphia Story, where the Philadelphia Story, she's with Cary Grant and Jimmy Stewart. So if you're looking to get maybe three of a kind, there you go. The Marx Brothers made goofy movies during the Great Depression. Any one of these films is just odd, to say the least, but it's slapstick kind of, they had just transitioned over to talkies, so the Marx Brothers had a little bit of everything. They were an old vaudeville act. They had Groucho, who was the smart aleck. They had Chico, who was kind of like the stereotypical Italian slapstick character, and Harpo, who didn't talk. So if you like Jay and Silent Bob movies, that's where they got their influence to have a Silent Bob character, was Harpo. Gregory Peck was kind of another leading man of the 1960s, if you will. My favorite out of this is To Kill a Mockingbird. Some of you watched that when you went through and read the book, but the film is very good as well. Atticus Finch is the character that he plays, and he plays it unbelievable. He was ranked #1 on the AFI, the American Film Institute's superheroes of film. So that character outranked even, the Avengers and Superman and all the rest of them. He was considered to be the most heroic character in American film. I also have a sweet spot for The Guns of Navarone, which was a fictitious World War II story, but really well done. Dustin Hoffman, one of the best movies ever made was Tootsie. Why? Dustin Hoffman plays a woman He's a struggling actor who dresses up as a woman to get a part, and then has to live kind of a dual life. For those of you that watched Mrs. Doubtfire, Robin Williams movie, that is complete takeoff on Tootsie. Like they basically did the same kind of premise, if you will. All the President's Men is about the Nixon administration and Watergate. Kramer versus Kramer was one of the first movies to really take on divorce, and it was Hoffman and Meryl Streep. You'll notice both of them were nominated for Academy Awards. Streep won it for the Kramer versus Kramer. Rain Man, Dustin Hoffman plays a autistic person. You can actually stomach Tom Cruise in the film too, so that's not too bad. And then The Graduate was Dustin Hoffman's character, who, as a young man, being seduced by an older woman. It's really uncomfortable. Watch it with your parents. Meryl Streep, her films, these are the films that she got nominated for Oscars for. 3 of them she won. Kramer versus Kramer, Sophie's Choice is really not an easy one. It's about the Holocaust. It's about a woman that is put in an impossible situation to choose who lives, who dies. It's really kind of a heart-wrenching thing, so don't watch it if you're looking for an uplifting movie, if you will. And of course, some of you have watched The Devil Wears Prada, maybe. If you haven't, she plays a very mean, sadistic fashion designer. And The Iron Lady is the story of Margaret Thatcher, who's the British Prime Minister during the 1980s. Sidney Poitier, one of my favorite actors, and he's phenomenal in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy are in as well. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner is about a white family that finds out that Sidney Poitier, who's African American, is going to marry their daughter. And the white family was, all about civil rights and liberal causes, and then they're confronted with it and they're struggling with it. So it's kind of idealism versus reality. Sidney Poitier plays an amazing role and character in that film. So if you want to see acting at its best, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner is a phenomenal film. To Sir with Love, I happen to like. It's one of the best teacher movies I've ever seen. He plays a teacher in the London school system, and he's got some pretty interesting students, to say the least. In the Heat of the Night was about civil rights in the South. A Southern sheriff who is white has to deal with Sidney Poitier's character coming down and investigating a crime. And it deals, of course, with race, as does Lilies in the Field and For Love of Ivy. So all of them deal with race relations in the 1960s. Jack Nicholson, you may have heard of. You may even have seen some of his films. He won the Academy Award for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and As Good as It Gets. But some of these films are also very good as well. A Few Good Men, he plays a supporting role, but he's pretty mean. He's a sadistic Marine Corps captain who is questioned about a Marine's death. It's very well acted, and you can also stomach Tom Cruise in that one. Spencer Tracy, this is an older leading man. You're talking about 1930s and 40s, before Cary Grant and Jimmy Stewart. But Spencer Tracy, probably one of his best roles was Father of the Bride, but he's also very good in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner as well. He won Academy Awards in Captain's Courageous and Boys Town, and he was nominated for Judgment at Nuremberg. So he's a very great actor, but those films are awfully old, so you may not particularly love those unless you really like old films. Gary Cooper won the Academy Award for High Noon. He was nominated for Sergeant York and for Pride of the Yankees. He might even have won for Sergeant York, but he's also another leading man of the 1930s and 40s. So these are older films. These are black and white. Jack Lemmon, probably one of the first comedic actors. He's very similar to not Jack Black, but in the physical comedy realm, but just in kind of, he always plays that kind of quiet, distinguished, funny man. The Apartment was not. That's a more serious role, but Some Like It Hot, he and Tony Curtis dress up like women. What's her name? Marilyn Monroe is also in that film. The Odd Couple is one of my favorites. He plays friend of Walter Matthau. These two were always kind of together. They're in Grumpy Old Men together as well. They were kind of the comedy team of the 1960s, 70s time period. But The Odd Couple is about two divorced men trying to make it. And they're just kind of goofy. Save the Tiger, he won the Academy Award for that role. So he's also considered one of the better actors of the late 1900s. George C. Scott, if you're going to do George C. Scott, I would strongly advise you to stick to Dr. Strangelove and Patton. Both of them are war movies, so Dr. Strangelove is really strange, to say the least. It's a Stanley Kubrick movie, so it's off the wall. Think, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember the guy's name. The guy who did Pulp Fiction and Django Unchained and stuff. Very. I'm sorry?
Quentin Tarantino.
Thank you. It's Quentin Tarantino-esque. So if you like Quentin Tarantino, see what his influence was. Dr. Strangelove is really strange. Patton is straightforward. It's about George S. Patton, played by George C. Scott. Scott won the Academy Award for playing Patton. I'd stay away from the other three movies, to be honest with you, unless you're in the Christmas spirit and want to watch his Christmas Carol. Elizabeth Taylor, she is considered to be the first kind of sex symbol of Hollywood, if you will. Some people don't really like her acting very much. She was a pretty face, but I'm not a huge fan of Elizabeth Taylor, but some people absolutely love it. And then Gene Hackman, he's another very widely respected actor who won the Academy Award for The French Connection. My favorite film of his is Mississippi Burning. He plays a FBI agent that goes down to Mississippi during the Civil Rights era and is investigating a murder of 3 young civil rights workers by the Klan. And he's got to root out the Klan in this small Mississippi town. It's exceptionally well done. So again, if you're looking at films, these are the actors you can choose from. Now, again, you're watching 6 total films over the next month or so, and you're scheduling your time with your group mates. So try and find a time where all of you can meet. Maybe it's over a weekend. Maybe it's, hey, I'm always free at 8 o'clock on Thursdays, or whatever else. You're trying to figure out a time where, yes, I can, A, have my movies watched, but B, have it ready to go. Now, I know some of you are going to say, well, what if we watch the same movies? That's fine too. If you all want to watch the same movies, if you want to coordinate that much where you're like, all right, all of us are going to focus on Tom Hanks and we're going to watch Philadelphia and Forrest Gump. The catch to that is if there are people in your group that are like, well, I've already watched those films, you're on your honor to watch something you haven't watched before. Okay. So again, this option can be tweaked to satisfy the needs of the group. But again, I want you to watch things you haven't watched before so that you kind of expand your film knowledge. Okay. Now that's the first option. Okay. The first option is film studies. You're studying actors and actresses of the 1900s. Okay. The second option is educated. Okay. And that's under the book group selections here. Remember, we kind of filled out that form and I was trying to work with getting you guys books. I was able to get educated in a PDF. I'm working on getting PDFs of other things, and I can certainly reach out and try and get them for you if you're struggling to get the books that you want to read. But let's say your group is like, I don't really feel comfortable watching films. I don't really want to do that. You can read the book Educated. That's one of the books I really enjoyed over the last year. Okay. Educated is by Tara Westover. It's a book in 3 parts, so it's easily divided up into sections, and I've divided them up for you there. What you would do is you read it in segments and have book group talks. So you and your group would get together on Google Meet and have book group discussions where you're talking about what Tara's been through, you're talking about the family dynamics, and I want you to actually have a book talk. It would only have to be a half hour to 45 minutes, the same way the film group study sessions are. I want you to have face-to-face meetings through Google Meet where you discuss the book, okay? And your assignment after doing that would be to kind of write down some notes. Now you can type them, or you can do what I do. You just fill out a little notepad off to the side, and then you just take a picture of it and forward it to me through the email, okay? You're just kind of, or you can, for that matter, post it to Google Classroom if you want. You're just getting me the here's what we talked about synopsis. It doesn't have to be overwhelmingly, oh, and then Devin said this, and then Lindsay said that, and then Mackenzie said that. You don't have to do that. It can literally be, well, we talked about Tara's father, and then we talked about Tara's brother, and then this is what we felt about their relationship with each other, and this is how we felt about the religious aspects of the book or whatever else. You're kind of giving me an update of what you were talking about. And then also, If you feel like some member of your group didn't read, you can include that in your notes. You can say, look, Mr. V didn't add anything to this. I'm concerned he's not actually reading the book. Okay, because you're on your honor to read what you're supposed to read. Okay, so again, if you choose to read, make sure that you're willing to do it. And I've already posted Educated, so you can actually bring it up and look at the PDF on your device right now and see if this is really something you want to do. Is this really a book that you feel comfortable reading off a tablet or your computer? The second option for reading is Moneyball by Michael Lewis. Moneyball is, this is for sports folks. If you're interested in sports, this was a book specifically talking about the economics of baseball. That why is it that the New York Yankees can spend hundreds of millions of dollars on their payroll, but Oakland, the Athletics, only spends about 40 because they can't afford the same players that New York can. It's an unfair game. So what they're trying to figure out is how do you manage your money to the point where you can still put out a team on the field that can beat a behemoth that can spend multi-millions of dollars. So the people that would read this would kind of read through. You'd have to at least have an interest in sports and economics to really like the book. But if you do, you're gonna fly through it. It's actually well written. It's not a bunch of numbers after numbers after numbers. It's explaining how the front office of this baseball team works behind the scenes to use the numbers and the statistics in a different manner. They're seeing the world differently, if you will. And Michael Lewis does a great job of pointing this out. Now, some of you are going to say, "Oh, I saw the movie." I'm going to easily be able. No, the book doesn't translate to the movie directly. There are a lot of things that the movie takes way too far, and there are some things the movie just makes up. I know you're going to be shocked that Hollywood just would make things up, but the book is different. So don't think you can go into your group meetings because I'm going to ask you to form groups. Form a group of people that want to read this. Again, in your group talks, it'll be very apparent if you didn't read it. Okay, so please make sure that you read it and participate in your groups. The third option is Steve Berry novels. These are the 5 titles that have to do with American history. The Lincoln Myth and The Lost Order both have something to do with Lincoln era, either treasure or, kind of the Confederate cause, if you will. So they both have something. Steve Berry always finds some weird conspiracy theory in history or this might have occurred in history and amplifies it into the modern day. So both of the Lincoln books, The Lost Order and Lincoln Myth, have obviously something to do with Lincoln's presidency. 14th Colony has something to do with, is Canada really part of the United States? Could it have possibly been part of the United States? The Jefferson Key has something to do, obviously, with Jefferson and land, and the Bishop's Pawn has something to do with Martin Luther King Jr. and the Civil Rights Movement. So all 5 of those books are rooted in American history and lore. So obviously they're fiction. Obviously they're taking conspiracy theories to the extreme, but I find them to be quick reads and somewhat interesting. So if you want to form a group where each one of you choose a title to read, or you can say, you know what, we're all interested in reading the same one. That's fine. You would just reach out and say, here's our group and here's what we're reading. And if you need me to look for PDFs of these, I can try. Like I said, I had a hard time with the library, and it's mostly because the library is overwhelmed with requests like this. But I know Mr. Ficker and I have been able to root around the internet and find things in the past. So if you need help with Moneyball or you need help with Steve Berry novels, let us know. We'll do the best we can. And of course, you can always order them through Amazon, and you can even go on to your library websites. A lot of these are on your tablet editions, Kindle editions, EPUB, all that. So, and you can even find some of these even on Hoopla, which is the digital version of a library. And if you have a library card, you can download the Hoopla app and just listen to it on audiobook or find the ebook on there as well. Okay. The fourth option is to choose a nonfiction book. The nonfiction book selections are 2 that have something to do with the Apollo missions. Apollo 8 was the first one by Robert Curson. These are the men that circled the moon and made it possible for us to actually have a moon landing with Apollo 11, which was written by Craig Nelson. So if you're interested in Neil Armstrong landing on the moon, you want the second choice. If you're interested in how the Apollo missions actually got to the point where they could land on the moon, then you want to read the first one. Do you want to say hi?
Who are these people?
These are my CCP students. I'm in the middle of explaining what they're doing for their project. Okay. This is Aubrey. She's been driving me nuts along with her sister Sophia this morning. Okay. And there's the other one.
What? Who are you talking to?
My class. Say hi, and then you guys need to leave.
Hi. Oh.
Okay. I'll talk to you in a bit.
Okay, let's go.
Okay.
We're gonna make our thingy like this. Okay.
That's great. Not in here.
Okay.
Children. All right. The third option of on this book is all this marvelous potential. This was just released. I've been listening to this on audiobook. It's been fascinating. It's about Robert F. Kennedy's trip to Eastern Kentucky into Appalachia, trying to help out those that are impoverished during the 1960s. And when I first looked at it, I thought, oh God, this is going to be really boring. This has very little to do with Robert F. Kennedy. It's telling the story about the people of Eastern Kentucky and the people that showed up to his town hall meetings. It's talking about the coal industry. It's talking about their poverty. It's talking about their educational values. It's been really eye-opening and really fascinating because the author also traveled there to talk to the people that were in school in these classrooms when Robert F. Kennedy came to visit their schoolhouse, or the people that showed up and talked about the town hall forums. And these people are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s now, but they still remember Robert F. Kennedy walking in and answering questions. And some of them still held his feet to the fire that, hey, he didn't get all that much done, even after he had done all these different town hall meetings, if you will. There's Born on the 4th of July by Ron Kovic. This is an autobiography of a Vietnam veteran who was wounded and came home wheelchair bound and became a protester, became an anti-war protester. And he had huge influences on Bob Dylan. Bruce Springsteen always points to Ron Kovic as one of his major influences to write some of his music. Ozzy Osbourne also points to a number of things that Kovic said in his book. So if you're a music fan and wonder how the 1980s kind of rock was influenced, Kovic has a lot to do with that. And then the final one is The Fire is Upon Us. This is a little-known debate between a conservative commentator, William F. Buckley Jr., who would be the equivalent of like a Sean Hannity or a Rush Limbaugh, against James Baldwin, who would be kind of the equivalent of maybe a Reverend Al Sharpton today. These guys basically met in England at the Cambridge Union to debate the American Civil Rights Movement. And Buckley's basically saying, while I understand equality needs to happen, it's happening too fast. And Baldwin's basically saying, I'm tired of waiting. It's very kind of Malcolm X in his approach to the debate, and Buckley's kind of outwitted at this debate. But this goes into the backstory of how they got there and what they were doing within the context of this debate, if you will. And then, of course, you're going to select one of the books for your group and read the entire book. You'll divide the book into 3 parts and read each part before the group discussion times on Google Meet. Again, if you're kind of like, man, I don't know if I really want to read this book, you can get on Hoopla, Hoopla. Okay, they have an app from your library. You can download it, put in your library library card number, and you have access to most, if not all, of these on audiobook. So you can literally do what I do anytime I go out for a walk or something. I just take my phone with me, plug in my headphones, and just listen to a book. You'd be amazed how quickly you can get through a book just by walking for about a half hour to an hour every day. And many of you are probably going outside and walking around anyway just to get some fresh air. Or if you're just doing chores, like anytime I'm doing dishes or something like that, anytime my kids are driving me nuts, I just put it in and listen. It's amazing how many books I've gotten through, both reading and listening. Okay, so again, please think about that. And if you don't have a library card, I had a couple of students say, well, I don't have a library card. You can get one online right now, which helps you for online only checkouts. It doesn't matter which library you go to, they're all offering an online library card, so you can at least download books or ebooks, download ebooks or download audiobooks for whatever you need. And I will also mention this too. Some of these videos from the previous project, some of the classic films are on Hoopla and other library services as well, in kind of an online streaming service as well. So please look into that. Hoopla has been an amazing, and it's also available on your computer too. So you don't have to have the app for your phone. You can download it to your computer and do it that way. All right. So that takes you through all the way down to number 5. Now the 6th option, TAH Hero Series. This was just announced yesterday. They're in the planning phases. But for those of you that have been looking to do some of those online webinars, they're going to launch a webinar series on American heroes. And I think it was American heroes in medical, political, military, and there was some, I think, economic, businessmen. So they're going to have kind of one per week during May. Your assignment would be to attend 3 of those webinars. And this is not a oops, I forgot. You have to attend 3 of those webinars. You have to write up, here's what we talked about, here's what was discussed, here's what I found interesting, here's what I have questions about. It would be about a page synopsis for each one of the hero series that you attend. The process to that, and I will forward it and put it onto Google Classroom. When they send this out, they're going to say, hey, we're meeting on this date, and this date. The process would be, it would be through WebEx, which if you have Google Chrome on your computer, they have an extension for WebEx. It's very easy. You download it very quickly and you're in. They mute your microphone. You're allowed to kind of send some chat questions. Sometimes they'll open it up where people can say, hey, I've got a question, can I talk? But very rarely do they do that. It's college professors talking about these American heroes, and kind of presenting these little known heroes. They're not looking to do a web series on George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. They're going to be talking about the lesser known people in American history that had huge impacts. You can do that series, do all 3 of the webinars leading up to the last day of school, and turn in that if you don't want to do any group work. I know some of you are like, man, I don't want to work with anybody. I just want to do my own thing. Maybe you want to do the TAH Hero Series. And again, as soon as they announce the dates and times for that, I'll forward that out to you so that you know when to log in, when to kind of set aside the time. Usually these things are about 1 p.m. They're in the afternoon. Okay, so again, if you're one of those people that you're working or you have issues kind of setting some time aside on the internet, you may not want to register for them. You may want to take another option. And then finally, create your own project. Reach out to me if there's something that, hey, I've always wanted to do this in history, and we'll create a project. Okay. So let's say there was something we talked about this year. If you remember, one of the first things I told you is, hey, I want you to find something that you find really passionate about history. I want you to find something you really like. If you have a topic where you're like, man, I really want to learn more about this, reach out. We'll talk. Maybe whether it be, hey, there's a book about that. Maybe we'll have you just read that and do your own separate project. Some of you have been doing really well with analyzing photos, analyzing videos, analyzing whatever. We can create a project that's a little bit different than what we have here. We can also tweak some of these projects. So please visit me on office hours and say, hey, I've been looking over the project options. I don't really want to do a group, but here's what I have and here's what I want to talk about. Maybe you're huge into Lincoln. Maybe you thought, we didn't talk enough about westward expansion and you want to know more about that. Maybe there was another president that you're like, man, I really want to learn more about James K. Polk, or I want to learn more about, John F. Kennedy, or maybe hey, we never got around to talking about the modern era. Is there something I can do about Reagan or Clinton? Whatever the case may be, we can work out your own project option. Again, I'm trying to keep this very loose. I'm trying to keep this very user-friendly so that you can complete this class, get a good grade in your Sinclair class, and just move forward, okay? I have to have the grades into Sinclair by our last day of school. That doesn't mean I don't have a little bit of wiggle room, but please don't push it too much. So try and keep to the schedule that I've got the first third of the project done by May 4th, the second part a week later, and the third part completed by that last week of school. Remember, our last day of school is May 20th. Check that, May 21st. Sorry. It's that Thursday of that week, right before Memorial Day. All right, so that is how the project looks. I'm going to stop presenting now. Here's why I can take questions. Questions can be brought in a multitude of ways. You can chat the questions, or you can unmute your mic and ask. Devin, your question from about 40 minutes ago, my apologies. Yes, you would watch them on your own. You're not gathering to watch these films together. We're still very much sheltering in place, quarantining, whatever the hell you want to call it. The last official day of school is May 21st. Okay. I've had some people join. Hey, Adam's up. Nice to see you, Adam. Osei, can you see, joined. Still no Ethan. I'm worried about his pulse.
I woke me up from my sleep to join.
Aw, poor Adam. Let me
It
guess,
was so good.
your hair is shaped this way, or is it this way?
Wait, hold on. My computer. I don't know. It's shaped in a good way.
Shaped in a good way. Fantastic. That's a good update. All right, everybody. Adam's hair is shaped in a good way.
Ethan is alive, by the way.
Can you encourage him to reach out to me through email so I can, take him off my no contact list?
Yeah, he's texting us right now. So
He just woke up.
he just woke up.
I've emailed the poor young man. I've tried to call him a number of times and nothing. All right, so
Can we go now? I want to go make grilled cheese.
yes, we're coming up on lunchtime, or as Roland calls it, breakfast. Again, if you have questions, you can stay back. You know, as people leave, that's fine. But if you want to stay back and ask some specific questions, that's fine. What I need from you is everybody needs to think about what project option they want to do, and they need to email me their plan. So if you've got a group of friends that say, all right, we are watching movies and we are going to do that project option, then you need to email me. And it only needs to be one person from the group. One person would say, hey, I'm doing this project option along with. So I'm just looking at the class list. Miss Martin says, hey, Brinkman, Osei, and Selvey, we're all going to watch films. We're going to do our Google Meets on Saturdays. It's going to be Saturday the 2nd, the 9th, and the 16th. Okay, those are the days that we're going to hold our meetings. You're telling me what you're doing, who you're doing it with, and when you're getting it done. That's what I need from you in an email. If you're doing one of the project options that are by yourself, again, you're kind of letting me know, hey, this is what I plan on doing the TAH series. Please forward that to me so I can register for them. And that's how I'm going to get the project done, the 300 points done. If you're planning on, doing one of the book things, you're just telling me what books you're reading and what days you're planning on meeting. Hey, Ethan's alive, everyone. Okay, a reminder that groups consist of about 3 to 6 people. Okay, doesn't have to be a huge group. Can be just you and 2 of your friends. It can be just, hey, you can even put a chat out right now. I'm interested in reading this book. Anybody with me? And then you can form a group that way. Totally fine with you trying to form a group to do this. And again, you're choosing what you want to do, and you're giving me an email. If I don't get an email from you by early next week, I'm going to start reaching out and asking, all right, hey, what's the plan moving forward? Because I can't have people waiting around until mid-May to choose what to do. You need to choose what you're doing now and get it going. Again, if you're planning on reading a book and I don't have it posted and you can't find it, you need to reach out so that I can get that to you and work with you to try and get you a copy. I cannot get you a hard copy of anything. I'm sorry, the school is completely shut down to everybody. So I need to find you digital copies. So it'd have to be a digital copy. And again, I encourage you to just use audiobooks. Audiobooks are so much easier. You can get a lot done while listening through either Hoopla or, I'll tell you right now on my tablet, I'm constantly downloading things to Cloud Library is another fantastic app. Overdrive allows you to log into the state of Ohio's library database, and they have 1.5 million books on there. So there are 1 million ways for you to find these titles online, and I'll try and facilitate as much as I can. But again, your project options are, part of this is you finding the resources necessary. If you need a hard copy, then you need to get on Amazon and see how long it's going to take them to get it to you. My daughter had to order a book for her class. We got it in about 4 days, but that's not typical. So do realize right now, if you've got to order something, because if you're like me, you like having the book in your hand, you need to get on that pretty soon.
Okay.
All right, folks, again, I need an email pretty soon telling me what your plan is. If you need to stay back and ask questions, please feel free to do so. It's nice to see all of you. It's wonderful to see Ethan alive. And thank you so much to all of Ethan. You have no idea how many friends were reaching out to you and concerned about your well-being. So, we're all in this together. That's fantastic. I might remind a few of you, you're behind on assignments. If you need to talk with me at some point or email me to let me know, hey, what the plan is moving forward. I realize some people have some internet issues. I certainly had them this morning, so I'm going to be very understanding when that kind of stuff occurs. Some of you had some health stuff with family. Please reach out, talk to me so we can make a plan to get those assignments turned in and the grade amended. If you need any help on anything, again, I'm going to hang back here, and I'm also going to be on tonight again from 8 to 11 this evening. So if you want to log back into Google Meet and talk during office hours, again, this evening from 8 to 11, I'll be on. And again, I'm recording this session, so if you need to refer back because you're like, man, I don't remember what he said about this, I'll make sure to post this to YouTube as soon as I possibly can. Devin should take a hint. I mean, come on, Osei, you know better than that. We don't want to hold Devin up, though. It's lunchtime. All right, folks, if you're good to go, it's good to see all of you, and I hope you're all healthy. But again, if you want to hang back and ask questions, feel free to unmute, and we'll talk.
Are we allowed to stream movies together through Google Meet? Like how you're presenting, we can watch a movie together?
I don't know how well the speaker would work on that. You can certainly try, but I'm not sure how well that would work. I know I've tried to stream music before, and it's not the greatest.
There's a website called Rabbit you can use. You can watch Netflix movies and stuff together.
Devin, do you mind text or chatting that?
Yeah.
Are you done? Any other questions or concerns? Okay, we're down to about 7 people. Feel free to chime in if you're hanging back with a question.
I lied. Apparently, Rabbit doesn't exist anymore.
I'm sure there are other things that have taken its place.
Probably. Okay, I'm gonna go make a grilled cheese now. Have a good day, Mr. Z.
Enjoy, Devin. Enjoy.
I will.
And then there was one.
I'm leaving. Wait, should I tell you who's gonna be in our group while we're here?
Yeah, you can just go ahead and tell me.
Okay, so me, Lindsay, Naya, and Kara are gonna do the films.
Okay, Marvin, Martin, Rorig, and who? I'm sorry.
Uh,
You said Nia, Lindsay, and who?
Kara. Sorry, I couldn't think of her last name.
Puccini. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Marvin, Martin, Rorig, Puccini, and you guys are all doing films.
Yeah.
Yes. Wait, what happens if we don't agree on an actor? Like, what if Markel hates the actors that I
We don't
picked?
have to watch the same movies.
That is
Oh.
correct. You do not need to watch the same things. You can choose your own path.
Oh,
And
okay.
we have to watch 6 each.
2 per week. From the and
Okay.
each one of them needs to be. Each week needs to be from the same actor. So if I'm if I'm choosing. If I'm choosing, let's say I'm going to go back to it now, Cary Grant, and I say, all right, I found Arsenic and Old Lace, and I found North by Northwest. Those are the movies that and I would communicate that to all the group. Like, here's what I am doing. Now, this may be informed by, hey, I went on Hoopla and I was able to find 2 Cary Grant movies. So that might inform what you're doing because, hey, I can get those films. I might get on to, if you have a Prime account or if you have Netflix, you just search the actor to see if, hey, maybe, there's 2 Audrey Hepburn movies or whatever service you're going to use. You might actually just take this to your parents and say, hey, I know you have a bunch of old movies. Are any of these on, in our, video library somewhere? Whatever you feel like you have to do, that's how you're going to choose your films. Okay. So
Okay.
you don't need to all watch the same thing. You can literally say, hey, 3 of us are all going to watch Tom Hanks movies. And if you're like, man, I've already watched those, or man, I'm not a huge Tom Hanks fan, or those don't really appeal to me, you can do your own thing and say, all right, I'm watching Robin Williams. Stop.
Okay, so in the Google, like the Hangout that you want us to do, we just have to like describe the movie, right?
Well, you're going through and you're analyzing it. You should kind of go through and say, hey, I watched this and man, I thought this actor was really good, or man, I think V said he was a classic actor, but I don't see it. You're kind of reviewing the movie. And if you've ever seen a movie review where somebody's going through and kind of telling you, here are the good things, here are the bad things, here's what I thought was interesting, here's what I thought was bad. You're kind of analyzing the actual films.
Okay.
Gucci.
If anything, you're
Sorry.
kind of coming together and just talking, which we're not getting enough of because of this wonderful situation we're all in.
Oh, don't worry. I talk all the time.
I'm sure you do.
I bother Markel all the time. It's a
Okay, I'm
tradition.
gonna leave now.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good one. Okay.